Before the Spitfire ever became a legend, another fighter was already waiting in the wings. The Hawker Hurricane looked old-fashioned. Fabric skin, thick wings, a wide canopy, but it would become the machine that actually saved Britain in 1940. Its story began in the early 1930s, when biplanes still ruled the skies. Engineer Sidney Cam, chief designer at Hawker Aircraft, believed a monoplane could outfight any biplane if it were built strong enough. Using lessons from the Hawker Fury, he drew up a simple, rugged airframe of steel tubes and wooden ribs, covered in doped linen. It wasn't elegant, but it could be repaired with basic tools. When the Air Ministry called for a new high-speed fighter, Cam was ready. The prototype Hurricane flew in November 1935, powered by the early Rolls-Royce Merlin. It reached 315 miles per hour, astonishing at the time. Test pilots praised its steady handling and strong dive. The Air Ministry ordered production before the Spitfire had even left the drawing board. By 1937, factories in Kingston and Brooklands were turning out Hurricanes in quantity. They were Britain's first truly modern fighters: metal wings, retractable undercarriage, enclosed cockpit, but still built with craftsmanship familiar to old-school mechanics. That mix of new and old would later make the Hurricane nearly indestructible in combat. Each carried 8.303 Browning machine guns in thick wings designed for easy access. Ground crews could reload and patch bullet holes in hours. The aircraft's thick frame absorbed punishment that would cripple a Spitfire. When war erupted in September 1939, nearly every RAF squadron flew Hurricanes. They fought over France and the North Sea, intercepting bombers and escorting retreating troops during the fall of France. Losses were heavy, but the aircraft's toughness kept pilots alive. By the time of Dunkirk, the Hurricane had already proven it could face the German Bf 109 on equal terms, and more importantly, it could be replaced and repaired faster than anything else in the RAF. Summer 1940. Britain stood alone. Night after night, Luftwaffe bombers crossed the Channel. By day, swarms of Bf-19s guarded them. The newspapers praised the sleek Spitfire, but in truth, the burden of defense fell on the Hurricane. Of roughly 700 RAF fighters available at the height of the Battle of Britain, more than two-thirds were Hurricanes. They were assigned the hardest task, breaking up bomber formations before the Spitfires dived on the escorts. It was brutal, close-range fighting. Cannons flashing, glass shattering, machine gun rounds hammering the sky. Pilots soon learned to trust the Hurricane's strength. It could take staggering damage, holes in the wings, oil on the windshield, and still limp home. Many returned to base with fabric burned away, structure half shot, yet the pilot alive. Mechanics patched the holes overnight and sent the same aircraft back into combat the next morning. Unlike the Spitfire, the Hurricane's simple frame could be rebuilt on the spot. Factories and workshops across Britain turned out replacement wings and fuselage panels by the thousands. Women filled the assembly lines at Hawker and Gloucester. Teenagers served as apprentices. Each rivet, each brush of dope on linen was part of a national defense built by hand. Inside the cockpit, the view was limited, but the controls were forgiving. Pilots transitioning from biplanes found the Hurricane familiar. Stable, responsive, gentle in a stall. It could roll slower than a Spitfire, but it could outturn one at low speed, giving rookies a fighting chance. Squadrons like 303 Polish Fighter Squadron, composed of exiled Polish airmen, became legends in the type. In only 2 months, they destroyed over 100 enemy aircraft, more than any other unit, proving that skill mattered more than machinery. By the end of October 1940, Britain had survived. Historians estimate that hurricanes accounted for 60% of all enemy aircraft destroyed in the battle. The Spitfire captured the public imagination, but the Hurricane carried the weight of victory. It was the workhorse, the shield, the unsung guardian of the island. When Winston Churchill declared, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few," most of the few were Hurricane pilots. By 1941, the Hurricane had already secured its place in history. But the war was far from over. While newer Spitfires and American fighters took center stage in Europe, the Hurricane was sent wherever the fight was hardest and conditions were roughest. In the burning deserts of North Africa, it earned a new nickname, the workhorse of the desert. There, the elegant Spitfire struggled with heat and sand, but the Hurricane thrived. Its wide landing gear handled rough airstrips. Its sturdy Merlin engine tolerated dust and scorching temperatures, and its simple frame could be patched with canvas and wire if needed. The RAF quickly adapted the aircraft into the Hurry Bomber, a fighter bomber that carried two 250-pound bombs or 8 rockets under its wings. At the Battle of El Alamein, hurricanes roared low over the sand, striking German tanks and supply convoys. The old interceptor had become a ground attack weapon, a thunderous hammer against Rommel's Afrika Korps. The Hurricane's range and adaptability made it invaluable. It was modified for tropical operations with sand filters and desert camouflage. Mechanics joked that if you could fuel it and point it in the right direction, it would fly. And fly it did, from Egypt to Tunisia, and then east to Burma and India. In the Far East, hurricanes faced the Japanese Army Air Force, Agile Ki-43, Oscars, and Ki-44 Tojos. They weren't the fastest aircraft in the theater, but they were strong. Pilots used diving attacks and hit-and-run tactics, using the aircraft's durability as its shield. At sea, the story continued with the Sea Hurricane, a naval conversion fitted with an arrestor hook and catapult gear. These were launched from tiny merchant ships known as CAM ships, catapult aircraft merchantmen. A Hurricane would be fired from a rocket-powered catapult to intercept bombers attacking convoys. There was no way to land afterward. The pilot had to ditch in the ocean or aim for friendly territory. It was a one-way mission, but they did it anyway. Later, proper escort carriers gave the Sea Hurricane a safer home. They protected the convoys that fed Britain and the Arctic lifeline to the Soviet Union. Those Arctic hurricanes flew in brutal weather, ice on the wings, engines gasping in the cold. It was among the most dangerous flying of the war. The Soviet Union received thousands of Hurricanes under the Lend-Lease program. At first, Russian pilots mocked them as outdated until they discovered how reliable they were in the snow and mud. The Hurricanes fought dogfights over Murmansk and Leningrad, strafed columns on the Eastern Front, and trained an entire generation of Soviet aces before Yaks and Legs replaced them. By 1943, the Hurricane had fought on every major front: Europe, Africa, the Middle East, the Far East, and the Arctic Circle. It was no longer the RAF's top fighter, but it had become something else: a universal soldier, able to fight anywhere, in any role, and still bring its pilot home. By 1943, the Hurricane's days as a frontline interceptor were ending, but its story of endurance was only getting stronger. While sleeker Spitfires and new American Mustangs took over high-altitude combat, the Hurricane reinvented itself again and again. Engineers realized that the airframe's toughness and stability made it perfect for night fighting. The Hurricane MK-2C was equipped with radar sets, flame-dampening exhausts, and long-range fuel tanks. Flying from shadowed airfields, these aircraft hunted bombers under the cover of darkness. It was tense, lonely work, pilots navigating by instruments, guided only by radio direction and the faint glimmer of radar screens. Many intercepts ended in bursts of tracer fire against the black sky, a brief flash of victory in the night. Others became intruder missions, hurricanes crossing the channel to strike enemy airfields and trains under moonlight. The aircraft's steady flight characteristics made it ideal for low-level precision strikes. Then came the tank buster. As Allied armies pushed across Europe, Hurricanes were rearmed with twin 40mm Vickers S cannon beneath the wings. Each shot could pierce the armor of a Panzer. The recoil was immense, shaking the whole aircraft. But pilots learned to fire short, controlled bursts. They became airborne artillery, attacking tanks, trains, and gun positions from point-blank range. Pilots joked that they could feel the kick of each shell all the way to their teeth. In Burma, Hurricanes flew in monsoon rains, strafing jungle tracks and supply routes. They supported the Chindits and Commonwealth forces in some of the harshest flying conditions of the war. Even when new aircraft arrived, commanders kept a few Hurricanes on hand for their rugged reliability. Despite constant combat and harsh weather, the Hurricane's structure rarely failed. Its combination of metal and fabric was easy to repair with local materials, canvas, wire, and a steady hand. It might not have looked sleek, but it could always get the job done. By 1944, the Hurricane was finally being phased out of major RAF service, yet many continued in secondary roles: trainers, weather reconnaissance, and many Naval Reserve squadrons. The last operational sorties were flown in early 1945 by reconnaissance Hurricanes over Burma and the Indian frontier. After 6 years of global warfare, the aircraft that had begun as a transitional design ended as one of the most adaptable machines of the war. Its pilots called it dependable, forgiving, and fierce when it needed to be. One veteran summed it up best: the Spitfire got the glory. The Hurricane got the job done when the guns finally fell silent in 1945. Thousands of Hurricanes sat in hangars and airfields across the world. Some were scrapped within months. Others were sold or sent to training schools. But to the pilots who had flown them, the Hurricane was never just an aircraft. It was a friend that had brought them home. In the years that followed, aviation moved at breathtaking speed. Jet engines, swept wings, radar-guided missiles, a whole new age had arrived. Yet, amid the roar of turbines, the Hurricane's propeller song still echoed in people's memories. It had fought in every theater, under every flag of the Allied world. It was the aircraft that saved Britain long enough for victory to become possible. Today, fewer than 20 Hurricanes remain airworthy. Each one is a living artifact, its Merlin engine still thundering across the same skies it once defended. At air shows, the crowd always hushes when that deep, throaty growl builds from idle to full power. The sound seems older than the aircraft itself, part of history, vibrating in the air. Restoration teams across the UK, Canada, and New Zealand rebuild these survivors piece by piece. They recreate fabric wings with the same techniques used in 1939: doped linen, brushed lacquer, and hand-tied stitching. It's slow, precise work, a blend of art and engineering that preserves the heartbeat of an era. Museums tell the Hurricane's story with growing respect. Where once it was overshadowed by the Spitfire, Historians now recognize it as the backbone of Britain's early war effort. The statistics speak clearly. During the Battle of Britain, hurricanes accounted for nearly 2/3 of enemy aircraft destroyed. Without them, the Spitfire would never have had the freedom to fight. To younger generations, the hurricane offers a lesson that brilliance doesn't always come from beauty. It was boxy, rough, even outdated by some standards, yet its practicality and simplicity made it perfect for its moment. It showed that reliability can be just as heroic as glamour, that what wins a war isn't always what wins the headlines. When a restored hurricane takes off today, sunlight flashes across its gun ports, and the air ripples behind its propeller. It climbs steadily, gracefully, as if still on patrol. In that sound and that shape, you can hear every mechanic who patched bullet holes through the night, every young pilot who trusted it with his life, and every civilian who looked up from the ground in 1940 and whispered a silent thank you. The Hawker Hurricane was never built to be a legend. But history decided otherwise. It was the plane that stood its ground, the machine that made survival possible, and the proof that courage and craftsmanship could change the fate of nations. Even now, when one passes overhead, we remember what it means to endure, and why the simplest designs, built with purpose and heart, sometimes leave the deepest mark of all. And that is how the most amazing aircraft made its story. This was a really fun story to read to you guys, and I really hope you guys have enjoyed. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notifications on. Hopefully see you in the next video.